Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Coahw, that's Confessions of a Hotel Worker if you happen to be new. First up, we have belligerent guest mad I won't let him leave his service dog unattended in truck overnight. I should think not. By C.G. Cusick. Just had to call the police to escort a man off property. I hate calling the police. I'll try to keep this short. Guy tried to check in tonight. Firstly, his credit card didn't have his name provided on it. That was the first red flag. I told him that I needed a credit card with his name on it to match his identification. And he said that was his traveling card and insisted that he has never had an issue with it before. I told him that it's our policy to get a credit card with his name on it, and asked if he had any other cards he could use. Again, he insisted that it's never been a problem before, and asked me to check his history in the system. I asked if he'd stayed with us before, and he said he has not stayed at this particular property. I told him it would only show up in our system if he stayed here before. This is giving me deja vu. I remember once when I worked in retail, I had to ID somebody. And what was it, ID or was it? No, it wasn't ID. They tried to pay with a card that wasn't signed. They were an American customer and they insisted to me that it wasn't standard to sign them in the US, which may or may not be true, I don't know, but in the UK it was, so I couldn't accept an unsigned card. I think he eventually found another way to pay, I can't recall. He grumbles about it for a bit and asks if he can use Tap Pay, and he pulls it up on his phone to show his name displayed on it. We are currently transitioning to new management, and we've had issues with people using Tap Pay, so the new manager strongly suggested we get a physical card upon check-in. But I didn't really want any issues, especially for something that we've accepted up until recently, so I let him use it. After the card goes through, he informs me he has a pet. Great. So as I'm starting to explain that we are a pet-friendly hotel, but we do require a pet fee, he says it's a service dog. And I have to let him know that there is no charge for a service animal. Pretty sure people abuse this all the time, since we're not allowed to ask for any papers to confirm, but it is what it is. I inform him that I have him on the first floor, so it will be easier to take his animal in and out to use the restroom. And he says that he plans to leave the dog in his truck overnight. Immediately not comfortable with that. Off the top of my head, I don't really know what the legal laws in West Virginia are for leaving an animal in a vehicle for such an extended period of time, but certainly that falls under leaving a pet unattended. So I told him he could bring his pet in, and I reiterated that there is no charge for service animals. But he said he wouldn't be able to sleep if the pet stayed in the room with him. He says it has not been an issue at any of the other hotels he's ever stayed at. Must have stayed at a lot of trash places then. I inform him that I'd have to run it by the manager first, see if they were okay with him keeping an animal in his truck overnight. Plus the whole issue with the card, and the manager texts me back that she was uncomfortable with that, tells me to let him know he wouldn't be able to stay with us tonight under those conditions. I politely relay that to the man, and he gets all belligerent, tells me it's bull, and that he's supposed to be meeting someone in the morning about purchasing a boat. Random. I tell him again that he can stay if he brings the dog in the room with him, and he absolutely refuses, so I tell him that unfortunately he'll have to leave the property. He says he wants my name, he wants my manager's name, he wants her phone number. I give him a business card, and he says it still shows a charge on his Tap Pay card. I tell him I reversed the check-in, so that should drop off. I just don't know how soon, and he refuses to leave the property. I'm on the phone with the police at the front desk, and he says, if this is about the credit card, it has my name on it. It just has a sticker over it. It's a super hilarious Trump sticker. We're way past that, my guy. Cops show up. I explain everything. He is escorted off the premises. Am I the a-hole here? No, I think the a-hole is the a-hole. You were... I mean, as you say, you can't leave an animal unattended, and I don't know what the weather is like where you are right now, but leaving a dog in an enclosed environment that could heat up quite significantly overnight, it's not healthy. That could lead to a dead dog, and no one wants that. especially when you've gone out of your way to let him know that he could have the dog in the room with him. So if it's a service dog, what services are it providing? Which you are allowed to ask, by the way. You could have asked that. It's obviously nothing super essential that he's going to need through the night. Probably not a service dog at all. As you say, people abuse it all the time, especially wankers. And the second story today is, why do you smile? Do you think it's funny that we don't have money? By Big Air 3392. In my last property, we had a pretty standard policy. A $50 deposit for guests with debit or cash. The policy was listed on the website and we explained it again during check-in. Still, some people don't like it. But this one couple, they were next level. They had booked 2 rooms for a birthday party, which we technically don't allow, but I'm not a monster. I usually just ask them to keep it quiet and clean. I decided to let it slide and moved on to collecting the $100 deposit for both rooms. That's when things went crazy. They instantly start yelling, demanding the manager, being disrespectful and aggressive. After a while, they finally agreed to pay. Oh, I think when the yelling starts, they could just, go find the door. I charged $50 one room, no problem, tried the second $50, declined. Now suddenly, they decide to cancel one room and only stay in the other. Sketchy vibes all around. So I asked how many people will be staying in the one room. They answered, 8. For reference, that room's max occupancy is 6. I politely told them we couldn't allow that. I promise I never in my entire life heard so much screaming, cursing in front of a whole lobby of guests waiting to check in. Here's the thing, a stressful situation like that wakes in me the desire to cry. I think it's childhood settings. But before that, my face is an uncontrolled smile look. The woman looks at me and yells, "Why do you smile? Do you think it's funny that we don't have money to stay here?" I replied, "This is just my customer service face. I always smile to guests." Then I cancelled their reservations, refunded their money, and asked them to leave. Hey look, now they've got money. As I'm processing the refund, she starts loudly talking to other guests like I'm some evil person. But one of the other guests just looked at her and said, "Yeah, I'm not gonna support you here. I only see you being disrespectful." They finally left, and I went to the back to breathe. Almost got the emotional breakdown. The other guests, though, were kind, supportive, and gave me a moment to regroup. Third story today is, what is it with sports ball tournaments that bring out the craziest people? By Toy Moose. Welcome to my slice of Hades, our 2-star hotel. Big tournament in town, so of course we're booked with hyperactive kids, adults who think since we offer coffee and donuts in the morning, that we're a full-service 24-hour restaurant. And the one lone business traveler who just wants a quiet room to get some sleep. All in all, a normalish night. Everyone gets checked in, the adults learn that there's a diner adjacent to the hotel, and everyone settles in for their big games tomorrow. At this point, it's around 9:30 p.m., and a compensation truck rumbles up to the front door. And out pops Mr. Sports Dad, and he comes inside.
"I understand that Coach Sporty is staying here for the tournament, is that true?"
"Sorry, sir, I cannot verify that information in order to maintain our guests' privacy."
"Why can't you tell me?"
He obviously has hearing problems.
"Listen, his best starter is down with the flu, and one of his other players couldn't make it due to being at a funeral. So he's gonna need my kid to fill in for them. Coach is not going to break his win streak for the division, as he knows that his players won't be scouted at the next event."
Again, for the privacy of our guests, we do not provide that information. At this time, I'm eyeing the speed dial of the local sheriff's office. This guy was giving me extreme stalker vibes.
"Listen, I didn't drive 4 hours to not talk with Coach Sporty about using my kid to fill in."
If only they invented some sort of telecommunications device you could have used beforehand.
"They've got the talent and the drive to be the starter for the coach's team. They've been working out in the gym, and has been perfecting their game in hopes of impressing Coach."
While I understand this might be frustrating for you, I cannot go against policy for our guests' safety.
Oh, so your policy won't let you. I have my own policy written by Mr. Franklin.
Please don't. He then proceeds to pull out $100 bill and puts it on the counter and just stares at me. Sir, I am not going to accept this money, nor am I going to offer any information regarding our guests. Because you live in the real world and not a movie like this guy, apparently. At this point, I'm going to ask you to vacate the property, or I will be contacting the sheriff's office to have you trespassed.
Fine. Be that way, you
anatomical impossibility. So, he proceeds to stomp out of the lobby and clambers into his truck and fires it up. And he proceeds to drive out from the front doors and into the parking lot. The truck rolls to about 20 feet, and then the whole truck shudders to a stop. He jumps out and starts marching back into the lobby. I quickly speed-dialed the sheriff's office, and bless this clerk's heart. Hey, OP, have an issue? Yes, a belligerent non-guest, maybe a stalker. Okay, Officer Friendly is on his way. By now, the man is yelling,
Coach Sporty is staying here. That's his wife's car in the parking lot.
Sir, that is a rather common model. It does not mean...
It's hers, all right. It's got that rabbit plush in the back window that his kid gave to her.
Concerning, you know that. Sir, at this point, I'm going to ask you to leave the property immediately. This is private property, and you're not welcome here.
Then I want a room for the night.
Sir, we're sold out. We have no rooms available.
So just kick one of the players from that other team out of theirs. They're always dead last at the events. Heck, some of them might be happy to have an excuse not to show up and play. Then it will give my kid a chance to impress the coach with their skills. Then the recruiters will notice him early, and they'll be able to get a full ride and go pro.
I think he's becoming more Hulk Hogan as I go. Again, sir, we have no rooms available, and I need you to leave now. At this time, Officer Friendly rolls in. He then proceeds to tell him that there have been numerous complaints from the hotels in the area about him, and that it would be in his best interest to return home or find a hotel in the next city over to spend the night. He drives off, tires squealing. Officer Friendly comes in to finish up his paperwork. It turns out that he has been going hotel to hotel looking for Coach Sporty. By the way, the tournament was for under 8s. And the fourth story today is World's Worst Hotel Award goes to by Maiden of the Audit. This night I'm working a combo shift of second and audit and get to 10 p.m. with no issues. We're fully booked and I have 2 check-ins left. One for a foreign third party and the other being a regular who always comes in an hour before audit. I'm thinking maybe the gods have graced me when in walks a girl with a walk paper. I try to direct her toward one of the 3 other properties in the immediate area that are also within our company, and, shockingly, the paper has all of our info written clear as day. No way for it to be another property. She asks why I cancelled her reservation, and I quad-check the system, then tell her to call the original property, the Shart Garden Suites, fancy, downtown, to confirm that they didn't get the wrong info. She can't get through, so I call.
This is the front desk. What do you need?
Hello, this is Maiden from Brandon Street. I'm contacting you regarding guest Flippy Doops.
Yeah, she's supposed to be there. We oversold her room type.
Right, we received no notice from your property and are currently sold out. I need to know where to send her next.
I called an hour ago and your coworker said you have rooms.
I have been the only one here since 4 p.m., and the only other person who was here today said he didn't get a call either. You may have spoken with a different property. The front desk from the other property then proceeds to say,
This hoe is calling me a liar,
to someone near them, then backpedals to hell. First she called, then the manager called, then we dropped the ball, then ring ring, winner winner. Nobody called us and they expected us to have rooms left. I asked for clarification on where to send the guest, and they proceeded to call me a bitch-ass white girl before hanging up on me. Classy. I update the guest, and then she calls them using our front desk line. She makes a list of every property they say they've already contacted and held a room at, and I call them on my personal line. Each conversation goes as follows. Thanks for calling. This is Maiden from The Brand. Have you received any calls from Short Garden this evening regarding walking a guest? Nope, we're sold out. The guest starts demanding confirmation numbers, is told they can't help them with that, and she has to go there and make the reservation as a walk-in. Then the guest lets them know I've already called and confirmed the other properties weren't contacted and have no rooms. If I were the front desk at Short Garden, I'd be getting my act together fast, because this girl is not only fully crashing, but I also have access to their franchise's corporate contact info from when their property got banned from our entire franchise portfolio. Now, what the hell is that story? Not only did they refuse to assist in finding a resolution, they doubled down and got their GM to email the guest, calling us drama seekers, and insisting that the GM personally contacted us, and got approval to send the guest to my hotel. Their front desk is now talking crap about the guest while on the line with her. The guest is having a complete breakdown, and I'm trying to get my GM on the line to assist in finding another property. Thankfully, one of my sister properties had a last-minute cancellation, and I was able to secure a comp room for her at nearly midnight. This just goes to say, Short Garden, you drop this, and then there's an emoji of a toilet roll. And final story for today, that's not chocolate floating in the pool. Oh, is it my hopes and dreams? By Due Present 6770. Several years ago, I worked front desk and night audit for a small oceanfront hotel in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We were the next to last location on the beach before the main drag ended Ocean Drive. Needless to say, but if you've ever been to Myrtle Beach during summer months, then you know just how busy and booked out we can be. There are approximately 500,000 locations to rent from, the north end of Myrtle Beach to the Murals Inlet, and approximately 2 million coming in trying to rent. This was in July, peak season. Anyway, we were booked out for the next 3 weeks and had a family coming in for a week from Burlington, North Carolina. The moment they arrived, I knew we were in trouble. The woman, let's call her Karen, threw the glass doors open, stomped in and yelled, "This better be effing worth it, because I've had a hell of a time getting here. Why didn't you people call us and tell us about the traffic?" Well, I'm not one to tolerate such behavior, especially when there are guests with kids in the lobby. I looked at her and said, "I'm sorry to hear you had such a time with traffic. Is this your first trip to Myrtle Beach?" She then replied in her snarky tone, "No, it's not my first time. I've been here numerous times, but that doesn't explain to me why you didn't call me about the traffic." I blinked and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was an amenity we offer. Is that on the website?" "If you don't know, that's fine. I'll check it for later tonight." But to answer your question as to why I didn't call you, well, that's not part of the job, as traffic is reported on every single news outlet within the Myrtle Beach area in both North Carolina and South Carolina. Her face got so red she screamed, "Get me your manager right effing now!" Again, I blinked at her and calmly stated, "You're looking at the manager, and if you continue to use foul language at me or in general, you will not be checked in, but cancelled, and you can press your luck elsewhere in finding a place for a week under $2,500. This is not up for discussion. There are guests here with children that are taking offense to your choice of language, and since you have paid nothing but a one-night deposit, I will gladly immediately refund said deposit if you cuss just one more time." She clamped her mouth shut, looked behind her to find 3 adults, 3 teens, and 2 little kiddos staring at her with stank face. I asked for a name. She gave it and nothing else. Her husband came in, handed over his credit card, signed in, took the key, and they walked out. I assumed it was over, but I was mistaken. That was around 4 p.m. She called down at 8 p.m. saying the fridge wasn't working and all her food was spoiled. I told her I would get maintenance to check it out. Our maintenance guy came down about 20 minutes later and said they had packed the fridge so full of food that it was stacked on top of canned sodas, and they turned the thermostat down to the coldest setting, which burnt up the motor. Also, they had the AC on the coldest setting and the balcony door wide open. The poor guy had to unload the fridge, swap it out for another. We just happened to have a new one. And then they expected him to restock it for them. He told them no. They would need to put the food in coolers, as it will take at least 4 or 5 hours for it to be cool enough for food storage. Karen called down again, livid at this, and yelled, "What kind of crap hole is this place?" She did not say crap hole. "You gave us a fridge that won't cool, my food has been ruined, the Wi-Fi doesn't work, the AC is not cooling down, and I can't even get a call on my cell phone. This place is an effing disaster." I remained calm and said, "Karen, do you remember signing off on the rules, regulations, and important facts to know page when you booked? You would have had to initial it to continue the reservation. Do you recall that page?" "Yes. I obviously recall it if I made the reservation." "Good," I replied. "Then you should be able to recall that it stated 1. If you are buying groceries, do so after check-in because the refrigerator is turned off when not in use, and it can take up to 8 hours for it to cool to its maximum capacity. 2. The Wi-Fi works, but it is satellite-fed, so the signal may come and go dependent on the weather. We can't change that. That decision is made by the owners. The AC unit works fine when the balcony door is closed, but if you keep it open, the high humidity will cause it to work overtime and may burn out the motor. Please keep balcony doors closed when AC is on. 4. Cell phone service is not guaranteed, as there are no cell towers in the middle of the ocean, and we are an oceanfront establishment. As for the food, if the fridge is found to be faulty and not due to anything on your part, then I have no problem with refunding you what was paid for the food. Of course, canned sodas, alcohol, and any non-food items will not be refunded. I will just need your receipt for it." She hung up on me, so I let it go, told maintenance to keep an eye on them, and went about my night. It was calm for a while, then a different guest came in, a boy about 9 or 10, and said, "There's something floating in the pool." I said, "Something floating in the pool? Can you tell me what it looks like?" He wrinkled his nose and said, "It looks like poop." I asked him, "If I show you the pool on our security cameras, think you can point out where in the pool you saw this?" He nodded yes, so I took him back into the office and pulled up the pool cameras. He pointed it out, and sure enough, there was a huge log just floating in the water. Now, we had color cameras, so it was pretty obvious something was there. I thanked the kid, told him we would take care of it, and called maintenance. Oh, poor maintenance. Here's the crappy part, pun intended. When someone craps or vomits in a pool, it's not as simple as cleaning the pool out and letting the water filter itself. It has to be shut down. The pool drained and refilled by a professional company, shocked, then chlorinated. No one can use it for 4 days. This costs hotels, resorts, thousands of dollars. And if the culprit can be identified, they can be held fully responsible for the loss of revenue and cost of repair, or in this case, cleaning and refilling a pool. So the pool was immediately shut down and the gates locked. I called it into the pool company we used and advised all the guests. Once that was done, I took some time to review the camera footage, and lo and behold, there he was in dark blue swim trunks, middle-aged male, alone at the end of the pool, dropped towel and took a dump. The big brown log floating up behind him. He then quickly swam to the opposite side of the pool underwater. And guess who it was? It was Dick, Karen's husband. How do I know this? I rewound the footage and watched them leave their room, take the elevator down to the pool, and set up shop on the deep end. They took up both tables with umbrellas and 2 loungers. Dick was wearing dark blue trunks with no pattern. He was the only one wearing those. I then saw the episode. him swim to the other side, get out using the ladder, and walk over to Karen and the kids. Bingo! Now, you may think I called him out on it right then, but you would be wrong. I waited. I waited because I knew something else was going to happen during their stay. My intuition was right. The next afternoon, I was told their AC unit had to be replaced because it stopped working. The day staff said Karen left the balcony door open all night long, which burned up the motor. Noted. The next few days were rather smooth as far as Karen and Dick were concerned, but I knew it wouldn't last. Then on night 6, it happened again. The pool had been reopened for less than 2 days, and around 10 p.m., pool was open until 11 p.m., sometimes midnight, something told me to look at the pool cameras. There he was, this time in grey swim trunks. But he couldn't hide this time, as the only other people at the pool was a single mom and her 5-year-old son, and her son was with her in the water. I watched Dick swim over to the corner of the pool this time, but still in the shallow end. He watched the mom and her kid swim in front of him, then he leaned further into the water, pulled down his trunks, and quickly swam away, leaving another brown log floating. To say I was furious was an understatement. I called maintenance, and did it all over again. However, this time I was gathering evidence and involving the police. After it was all over, I took to social media and discovered some very interesting information on Karen and Dick. I won't give out their real names. I know it sucks, suck it up. Or their employers' names. The employer wasn't responsible for their disgusting behavior, but I will tell you what I found. Now get this, you won't believe it. Karen was a registered nurse that worked with hospice and cancer patients. I know, right? She had been working at this hospital in Greensboro for more than 12 years. Dick was a construction foreman for a federal operation that built, get this, hospitals, like VAs and such. He had more than 18 years under his belt at that time. So, what did I do with this information? I got petty revenge, of course. I backed up all the camera footage of all incidents, including the check-ins, onto another drive, called the police, and had Dick arrested and the entire family removed from the property. But that's not all. I then called their employers and let them know what happened. Why would I do that? Because there is no way I could stomach knowing such an evil, vile woman could be given access to a hospice and cancer patients, and the hospital staff and families not knowing how she acts in public, and for a federal employee to show his butt like he did, both thinking they could get away with it scot-free. No one, and I mean no one, is able to convince me this is the first time they've ever done this sort of thing. No, it's probably a fetish of some kind. God knows what the kids had to deal with. You should have seen Karen and Dick's faces when the officers brought them down to the lobby, showed them the pool footage, and announced Karen was under arrest with 1 count of disorderly conduct and 1 count of attempted embezzlement for the food. Dick was charged with 2 counts of disorderly conduct with malice intent, 3 counts of destruction of private property, pool twice and the AC unit, and 2 counts of indecent exposure. There, as I was wondering if that was going to happen. His name was on the reservation, so legally he was held responsible for the AC unit. The kids were held at the station until family could come get them, but this was on a Friday night, so there was no judge in court over the weekend, so they stayed in jail until arraignment Monday morning. Why not bond out? Because the bond was set at $100,000 for Dick and $10,000 cash for Karen, and no bail bondsman in the area would touch them. Bondsmen in Myrtle Beach are not known for accepting bonds out of state, even if it's just 1 state over and only 20 miles away from the state line. Also, the police are the ones who come up with the charges to file for court. Court was set for 8 a.m. Monday morning, and I was there, but it would seem I wasn't the only one. When Karen and Dick were escorted into court, 3 people stood up and approached the DA. 2 were representing the hospital where Karen worked, and 1 represented the federal contractor where Dick worked. When Karen and Dick saw their respective employers in the courtroom, their expressions were priceless. They both looked like they'd seen a ghost, and Satan was waiting in the hall. Karen's attempted embezzlement charge was dropped, but DOC stuck. Dick got popped with his, but reduced to only 1 count of DOC. The other stuck. Their fines came up to $27,000 for 2 pool drain and cleans, AC unit, loss of revenue from the checkouts and cancellations due to the pool incidents, my time and loss of income for appearing in court, and court costs. They were given 30 days to pay or face 3 months to a year in jail. I don't know what happened after court. We did get the check, or I should say the oil company that owns the hotel got the check. I can only imagine what their employers had to say about all of it. Oh, to have been a fly on that pile of crap. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Big thanks to everybody who allowed me to use their stories. If you would like to support the channel, you can do so by signing up for my Patreon page, which is linked down below in the description. There is also a link to my merchandise store over on Teespring, as well as my Discord and other social media things if you'd like to take a look. Okay. I think that's everything for now, so let's move on to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... We'll tag on to the last story there. If you had a big enough property, would you have a pool installed? I say this because a while back I was watching like home tour videos. There was a guy that was doing them. I think it was Florida he was doing them. A very handsome fella. That completely coincidental. But I happened to notice that. And he was obsessed with pools, right? He was very happy if he came across a property with a pool. If he was showing you a property, like a very nice, otherwise nice house that didn't have a pool, it was like, big enough you could put a pool in it. Put a pool in there. He was obsessed with putting pools in. And most of the time I was thinking, that's a nice house, I'd fill the pool in, because I wouldn't use it, I'd have no use for it. I'd rather build like fill that in and use the space in the yard to build like a little office, a little recording studio. It would be perfect for me. But that's based on my own needs. So, would you build a pool? Or maybe you have a pool in your home. Feel free to share in a comment below. And before we go, we'll take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. Let's see. And today's answer comes from, we're taking this one from Revenge's Ice Cream 379, and it was, what was your current obsession? And this answer comes from Ichao-kan. My current obsession is pinball. I used to play when I was a young cub back in the 80s and 90s, but I never had much in the way of disposable income back then, so it was a rare treat and I always loved it. Fast forward to the start of this year, 2024, and I moved halfway across the country from the middle of nowhere to a lovely small city out west for my job. Upon arriving, I mentioned to a co-worker that I used to really love playing pinball, but it had been decades since I'd done so, and he recommended a brewery in town that also serves great tacos and had a small arcade downstairs. It's a true third place for me now, though I'm not great at it yet. I did finally break 100 million on the Iron Maiden machine the other week, so I'm definitely making progress. Thank you very much for your answer, and I hope you continue to have fun with that. And that brings us to the end of today's video, so until next time, thank you very much for watching, and take very good care of yourselves. I'm done for the week. Yay!